The opinions expressed by the host and guests in this show are not necessarily the views of Children's Health Defense.
Good morning, CHD. It is Wednesday, the 20th of August, 2025. We are live here at CHD TV. Right, first up, we're going to talk about the AAP. I would say possibly the most dangerous organisation on earth right now as we speak. So we're going to bring on Dr. Larry Palevsky, who is taking time out of his very busy clinic to come and speak to us about this morning. Good morning, Dr. Palevsky.
Good morning, Polly. Good morning, CHD.
Yeah, how are you doing this morning? I know you're very, very busy.
I'm well. How are you?
Yes, well, very well, very well. Lots going on. But look, the AAP has been a real problem, and particularly in the last few months, and well, really since Bobby's been at HHS secretary. But this headline, which I hope Lou will bring up on there we go. Leading pediatrician group recommends COVID vaccine for infants and toddlers, in contrast with Robert F. Kennedy Jr. So what is going on here? We all know this COVID shot, and they're calling it a vaccine there, and you're going to tell us it's not in a minute, I know, is horrifically dangerous. That's why it's not recommended. Tell us what's going on with the AAP.
Well, you have to wonder what their strategy is, and you have to wonder who they're appealing to. I mean, certainly for those of us who are critical thinkers and who are awake, we can easily figure out the number of scientific studies that are showing the dangers of the shot, the strokes, the heart attacks, the myocarditis, the infertility, the cancer, the autoimmune disease, the stillborns, the birth defects that we're seeing in babies. You know, it's obvious. It's right out there in the open. Senator Johnson had it in front of the world to see. Thousands of publications in the scientific literature showing the dangers of the shot, lack of any safety studies. And yet you have to wonder, what's the strategy of the American Academy of Pediatrics? Why are they doubling down? It almost looks like they're on a suicide mission, that they're just pushing ahead regardless, and just out of touch with reality, out of touch what's going on, even in mainstream. Polly, I don't think there's anyone anymore who isn't aware of a relative or a friend or a colleague who has had a bad reaction to one of the COVID shots. And it's that public. My concern is that they are appealing to the people who are never going to know this information. Because there are a lot of people in our culture who go to local clinics, inner cities, all over the country, where this information may not even trickle down. And those clinics just roll out the vaccine schedule, one after another after another. Most of the time, a lot of these patients don't even know what's being given to their kid. The nurse or the doctor will say, oh, it's time for your shots. And the parent will just say, okay. And they won't know that this COVID shot is even given to their kids. We know that informed consent is a problem even in the well-established pediatric practices. You can imagine how informed consent is not happening in these inner city clinics.
Yeah, and we know as well that pediatricians are being given financial incentives to vaccinate these children as well. So there's massive conflict of interest. You're a pediatrician, you're our top pediatrician, you and Dr. Paul Thomas. Now, do tell us, as a pediatrician, if you could speak directly to that young mother and father who are going to just religiously go into their pediatrician and get this COVID shot because they don't know any better, could you please tell them the real dangers, as if you're speaking right to them, please?
Well, if you remember back in 2020, when we saw the COVID illness, the majority of the illnesses were in adults and in the elderly. And the pediatric population, the children, were barely affected. It was a very rare occurrence that a child had a serious illness related to whatever COVID was. And there really didn't seem to be an epidemic of COVID illness in children. So many people in late 2020 and throughout 2021 were saying, why give this kid to a population? I'm sorry, why give this shot to a population of children that isn't seemingly threatened by the COVID illness? Nonetheless, there was enough fear mongering that the shot became part of the pediatric schedule. The problem is that the shot is dangerous. The shot has chemicals in it that are very damaging to the brain, to the immune system, and to the nervous system. The shot has never been tested for safety, and it has an increased incidence of literally destroying, Polly, the heart of children, the testicles of boys, the ovaries and the uterus of girls, the thyroid gland, the kidneys, the liver, the pancreas, the immune system. I mean, it is a multi-system destroyer. And, if I were saying this in 2020 and 2021, people would think that I was being sensational. But now here we are in 2025, and the literature is filled with all the studies showing that what I'm saying is 100% correct. And, if you want your daughter to be able to have children, this is not a shot you want to give her. If you want your boys to retain his testicles, this is not a shot you want to give him. This is not a vaccine, Polly. This is a gene therapy and potentially something even more sinister. I would never, ever, even if I were a pro-vaccine physician, if I were aware of what the literature was showing around this COVID injection, I could not, in good conscience, give this shot to any child or adult.
Dr. Palevsky, with that in mind, what is the AAP up to? AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics, what's the purpose of it for pediatricians to listen to that body?
Well, it's interesting because, when I was a member of the AAP, I thought it was an organization that really was helping children. And I thought it was an organization that was supporting pediatricians. And over the years, I figured out that it was an organization that was doing the bidding of the pharmaceutical industry. And I have to question whether this organization is truly interested in children's health or whether it's pushing through some other more sinister agenda. It just doesn't look like the recommendations that they're making are any longer coinciding with what the real scientific literature says. And what's a catch-all phrase, Polly, if you look at what the American Academy of Pediatrics uses, they say we're basing our recommendations on evidence-based studies. And, that's a catch-all phrase. That's a real lure. That's a way to suck people into an authoritative term. Wow, if the American Academy of Pediatrics says this is evidence-based, well, they must have the evidence. And therefore, people are going to roll up their sleeves for themselves and their kids and get the shot. But there's no evidence at all. And you have to wonder when they are going to reach the point where their voice becomes obsolete, when enough people in the population have figured out that they're not basing their recommendations on any evidence at all other than what the industry itself is trying to do to push profits and who knows what else, where many of us are starting to believe that this is an intentional harm towards children.
Dr. Palevsky, I know that you're so busy. We're going to let you go now. Please do thank your patients for stepping aside for you to be on
I will.
this morning. And thank you for your advice. And we look forward to seeing you again soon.
Great. Thank you, Polly. Have a good day.
Okay, everybody. Well, at least we put that one right. As Dr. Palevsky said, the AAP will likely bring themselves down. So onwards we go in truth. Right. Now we have Laurie Pisciuta. Did I say that right, Laurie?
Yes, you did, Polly. Yes, you did.
Good morning, Laurie. Thank you so much for being here. This is a fascinating story about your son. So tell us, how old is your son now?
Yes. Good morning, Polly. Good morning, CHD. I want to just extend my gratitude for having me on this morning to tell a little bit about my story. My son is currently 18 years old. He just graduated in June of this year.
And he was kicked out of his senior high school year for not
Yes.
taking one shot. Tell us about, first of all, let's go back a bit,
Yep.
because are your children unvaccinated or vaccine free?
No, our children are slightly vaccinated.
Right.
Truly, very few vaccines over the years. We have two children. My daughter's 22. Our son, like I said, is 18. My husband's a chiropractor, and we've been, very cautious about the vaccines over the years, just because of my husband's chiropractic background and my background in the health and wellness world as well.
And so your son is they're asking him, he's got to get a meningitis shot for senior school. This is New York, everybody. We're talking about New York.
That is
And
correct.
so what did you tell us the story of what happened?
Yep. I had known about this because I had been following the whole vaccine schedule, and we knew 2 years prior to his senior year that this was coming down the pike, and that I knew right away that we were not going to be doing this. And we first had conversation with our son to make sure that he was on board, because we knew that he would be kicked out of school if he didn't have the vaccine, if we couldn't figure it out in that time period. And he agreed. He totally said, I'm on board with you. I understand that the side effects and so forth. And at that same time, interestingly enough, our neighbor's daughter had gotten that same vaccine, the meningitis vaccine. And within a week, she was a healthy, fit volleyball player. And within 10 to 10 days, she started having grand mal seizures. It was awful for the family. And that was just a clear indicator that we were going nowhere near that shot, and that whatever we needed to do to avoid that, we were going to do. So I started setting on the path of trying to figure out how we were going to navigate this in his senior year.
Laurie, though, for a 17-year-old boy, it's amazing that he understood. So thank God for that.
Yes.
But really difficult year to have to step out of school, with your friends and all the fun things that go on in that year. Must have been mentally extremely hard for him.
It was very hard. I mean, he certainly, he understood the health ramifications are more important than anything, because that could be a lifetime affliction. But he also wanted to experience his senior year. So we were kind of caught between a rock and a hard place, but we were going to do what was best for his health. And that was our primary focus.
So you go to the school and you say, no, we're not taking this shot. What did they say?
Correct. Well, let me backtrack just a little bit, because I had done a lot of legwork prior to his beginning of the school year. And I had obtained a federal medical exemption from an organization, because he has some biological sensitivities and things like that. So we were able to obtain the federal medical exemption, and I knew I would have to pull that out if they were going to kick him out of school. So he started school September as normal last year. He went through the full month of September, and I had gotten a couple of letters, certified letters from the school district, and a couple of phone calls stating that if your son does not have the meningitis vaccine, he will be basically kicked out of school starting October 1st. So I submitted the federal exemption, and they did not accept it. They said it had to be done by a New York State medical doctor. And at that time, many medical doctors here in New York have been under fire for giving medical exemptions. So they were very few and far between. But I knew in my back pocket that he turns 18 in December. And I had done, like I said, spoken to some lawyers over the last 2 years, and found out that when a child turns 18, they no longer are required by law here in New York State to get any of the vaccines. So for me and our story, we had 3 months that we had to figure out and navigate. I was really hoping that, Polly, that federal medical exemption was going to allow him to stay in school. But as of October 1st, I mean, it was like he didn't exist. They took him off his electronic platform. He had no access to any of the work he was able to do. His teachers were told not to contact us. I felt very alienated by the school district because they kept saying, well, we can't do anything, our hands are tied. And I kept saying, this is his senior year. We just need to navigate. Can you help me in some capacity? So I came up against a lot of adversity from the school district, and they just kind of wanted to wash their hands of it and let me, and me, I guess.
It's so abusive, Laurie. How can they treat a child? He's a child. How can they treat him like that?
Well, they did. And Polly, what we were able to do, finally, I was able to connect with one administrator at the district office who was able to help me kind of navigate through some of the homeschooling, because we would have to homeschool him for 3 months and then get him back on track in school after he turns 18, which of course makes no sense, because if you're talking about vaccines being for the health reasons, why is it that he could be in school all of September without the vaccine and not be a health hazard to anybody, and then come back in January as an 18-year-old without the vaccine and not be a health hazard? So it really, in this case, it had nothing to do with the health of the student body or the health of my son. It was really about checking off the box and making sure that he had that particular vaccine for his senior year.
Oh, but I feel so bad for him. It's terrible. So what did he? So he has to then be homeschooled, and you have to try and find out the work that he was doing. What did you do?
Yes. Well, like I said, the teachers were told basically they couldn't communicate with me. So I don't even know how they would have responded, because that communication was cut off. My emails were cut off. My son's emails with the school district were cut off. So we literally had no way to contact them anyway. What we did is we navigated figuring out, he was able to do one of his courses online. So we got an affiliated online high school program that was accepted by the school. So he was able to get that under his belt. And then the other courses he really was doing, we found some online curriculums that were similar to the school curriculum, because I was able to go online and figure out what he needed to accomplish in that period of time on it. I did a lot of work for that. And we were just on a hope and a prayer that he would come back strong and navigate the second half of the year. Quite frankly, that's what we were going on. And he had to accumulate a certain number of hours for homeschooling and all of that, which he accomplished without a problem. But it was a lot of extra work, a lot of extra time on my part to help him navigate through that before we got him settled for those 3 months.
And he's graduated now. And so when you look back on this, does he agree that this was worth it, as ghastly as it was for him?
He looks back at it as a really wild ride, to be honest with you, because he showed up at school one day and then was gone the next, literally. His friends were texting him like, what happened to you? Where have you been? What's going on? So he had to navigate that whole friend thing. But what he learned was more valuable than anything that could have been taught in school in those 3 months. He learned to stand up for what was right, to stand up for medical freedom, and that it should be your choice of what you put in your body or not. And it should not, be a reflection of whether or not you can educate yourself, right? Whether through the public school or another avenue. So he learned quite a bit from that, and learned endurance and his ability to be flexible, quite frankly. And then he was able to jump back on January, walked back into, I had to re-register him. He walked back into school, no questions asked, no vaccine gotten. And he was able to wrap up his senior year and enjoy prom and all of those great things that come along with being a senior in high school.
And what does he want to do now?
He is currently in the fall, he will attend a local college here, and he's working on an online program for entrepreneurs.
He sounds like an amazing young man.
Thank you. Thank you.
But, it disturbs me greatly. I remember, hopefully I can tell this story now that my son is older, but when my son in Texas here was signing up for college, he signed a religious exemption. He told his friends, you don't need to go and take that meningitis shot. You don't need to just sign here. And one of the boys said, I can't be bothered to fill the form out. I'd rather just get the shot. And this is what upsets me, is that these kids have no idea what they're about to put into themselves. They just have nothing. No, I mean, this boy would not have done it. He would have filled the form out if he knew that could have hurt him.
Yep.
And they just line up like cattle because they don't know. And I don't know how, outside of CHD TV and everything that we're doing, to get this message through to these young kids that don't have parents like you.
Right. I tell my children every day to go out in the world and make a difference, and make sure you let somebody know something, reveal the truth in some capacity, even if it's in a small way, whether it's about vaccinations or, technology and that kind of thing, just to speak truth and honor the truth, because it will, in all the darkness, the light will reveal what's been going on in the darkness. And
you are so sort of brave to do this. There's a lot of parents, and I'm not judging anyone, because I mean, I was probably one of them before, that don't want to upset the order of things. They'd rather their child got a shot than have their child be whispered about for not having the vaccine, or the neighbors talking. They want to just fit in and do what they think is the right thing. Again, with no understanding, this shot could kill your child.
Right.
So what makes you so, what's your advice to people?
My suggestion is to educate yourself before you walk into any doctor's office or medical office and thinking that you might be able to get you might be setting yourself up or your child up for a vaccine. Because I found that the more you educate yourself, and the more you educate yourself on your state requirements as well, because it's different state to state. I happen to live in New York. It's a very tough state. So reach out and navigate. There are a lot of medical professionals, lawyers out there who are willing to help that I was able to connect with over the first 2 years of trying to, quite frankly, speaking to lawyers and speaking to doctors and trying to figure this all out. So give yourself some lead time. Don't try to do it last minute, in other words.
Yeah, well, Laurie, I'm so grateful that you came on this morning to talk
thank you.
Give our love to your son and tell him great things. There's always applying for CHD. I think he'd fit in perfectly in some of our many departments here. But yes, thank you so much for this story. It's uplifting. It's awful what they did to him, but it's also uplifting to see the strength of what you can achieve if you stand firm.
Stand firm in your beliefs, right? Even though you go against the grain, believe me, it's not easy, but it's worth it in the long run. That's what I would tell people in a nutshell.
Yeah, and then you join also the amazing community of our movement. I mean, I can't see the chat right now, but I'm pretty sure you're getting a ton of love, and those are like-minded people with you. And so when you lose your neighbors or whatever you think is important to you, you gain by standing firm the most amazing people, which is people.
Holly, I want to thank you for this time, and I want to thank all the team of CHD for doing an amazing job, and all the guests you've had on. And it's just been so educational and such a blessing on many levels. Thank you.
Thank you, Laurie, and we hope to see you again soon. Thank you so much for coming on this morning.
Have a blessed day. Bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye, Laurie. Okay, everyone. Well, now Matt in marketing has been working very hard on a conference video. So I haven't seen it yet. So we're going to play this now, and then we're going to go to Mary Holland. She's interviewing Dr. Jonathan Rose, and I'll see you tomorrow on Financial Rebellion.
History doesn't wait. This is our moment to rise, unite, and reclaim our children's health.
Join us here in Austin, Texas this November at the Children's Health Defense Conference.
In the wake of unprecedented medical overreach and censorship, the world is waking up, and people like you are leading the way.
We're at a turning point in history. With the pandemic behind us, our fight for freedom and health has reached the global stage.
This is our moment of truth, and we're ready to seize it together.
And Children's Health Defense has been at the forefront of this charge. Our 2025 conference brings together the leaders, visionaries, and warriors who made it happen.
Meet the parents whose lives were forever changed, and hear from doctors who risked everything to speak out. Stand with those who refused to be silenced.
You are going to hear from world-renowned speakers, doctors, and frontline leaders driving the medical freedom movement.
Discover real-world solutions grounded in science, integrity, and human rights.
Join the discussion to talk about vaccines, informed consent, parental rights, and so much more.
And you'll, of course, hear from your favorite CHD personalities sharing the latest on CHD's research, litigation, and outreach.
And while you're there, soak up the energy, culture, and music of beautiful Austin, Texas.
Whether you're a parent, a practitioner, or a medical freedom advocate, this is your call to action to protect what matters most.
Be part of the movement that is rewriting the story for generations to come.
So please join us.
Join us.
Join us. Let's make history together in Austin. Good morning, wherever you are, Children's Health Defense. I'm Mary Holland, and it's my great pleasure to welcome today Dr. Jonathan Rose to talk about a book that he has published, Love in the Age of Autism, Navigating a Joyful and Romantic Marriage in the Face of Adversity. But I want to give a little bit of background for Dr. Rose. He's the William Kennan Professor of History at Drew University, and he's published several books, among them The Intellectual Life of the British Working Classes and The Literary Churchill, as well as articles on the history of autism. And as he said here, he and Gayle enjoyed a wonderfully happy marriage, which included raising two autistic daughters, Jennifer and Flora. Jonathan, welcome.
Thank you so much, Mary. Good to see you again.
Likewise. So I have to start by saying that Gayle was a good friend and was an incredible supporter of Children's Health Defense. She was absolutely an extraordinary warrior mom in the movement for many, many years. And it's a tremendous loss to all of us, most of all to you and your daughters, but it's a tremendous loss that we don't have Gayle with us. So I give my empathy and sympathy. But I have to say that reading the diary, essentially this is Gayle's diary, gave me a whole new appreciation of Gayle and what she was struggling with in the years when she was writing this in the last couple years of her life. I knew her, but I certainly didn't know all the joys and all the tremendous challenges she was dealing with. And I guess my first question to you, Jonathan, would be, did she know that, did she want this to be published? Did she want this to be published in this way?
Definitely. She told me as much. And she wanted to reach the widest possible audience. And she always let me read it. I didn't actually read it until she's very close to her death and was absolutely blown away by it. Yeah. Not only it spoke to me personally, it was very affecting on that level. But also, as a professional historian, I realized this was a valuable human document of a very tumultuous and in many ways tragic times. Yeah. Historians nowadays, we like to use the diaries of ordinary people to understand how they experienced great events. Yeah. I mean, the most famous example is Anne Frank, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And she describes these events without the benefit of hindsight. It's as they're evolving day by day. And I thought that would speak to a great many autism families.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So she, you were her best friend forever that she comes back to throughout the diary. And she, loved you as you obviously did her. But she describes as pretty raw, right, of the tremendous challenges of raising two daughters with autism, which I point out is quite unusual, right? Most of the people in the autism world are boys and men. And so it's unusual to have one daughter, but to have two daughters, very different, obviously, Jenny and Flora. She describes that also dealing with cancer for many years and dealing with COVID on top of that. So it's painful, right? It's a huge amount that Gayle was dealing with.
It is painful. It was an emotional roller coaster for me to edit it, and I think anyone reading it will find it's just very real. I mean, she doesn't pull her punches. No. This is what it's like, what autistic families have to deal with on a day-to-day basis. Right. There's obviously a lot of love in the family. We had a lot of good times, and we had a lot of pretty horrific times as well. Right. And I think that that's what makes it so valuable as a document. Yeah,
no, I agree. As I think you point out, So if I can just, speak directly, there's a lot of descriptions of Jenny, your older daughter's impulsive behavior and violence towards Gayle. And that is just harrowing. I am also an autism mom and have experienced some of that lack of impulse control and violence, and it is absolutely devastating, right? And Gayle was struggling with that really throughout the diary.
It is, and I have to give credit to my daughter Jennifer that she allowed this to be published, and she gave a sort of a postscript to it, even though it doesn't always present her in a very favorable light. Yeah. But she owns up to it, and I really credit her for that.
Absolutely.
It is something that, it's been almost a taboo subject.
It is. No, you're right. It's almost as if we want to protect our own. And so we don't want to tell this very kind of dark secret that so many of us have to live with. And it's very hard. And, Jenny is a remarkable young woman, a published author, extremely gifted, and yet at the same time, had this, real challenge of not being abusive to her mom.
Well, her favorite work of literature is Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, and she recognizes that in herself. And indeed, she could be immensely charming and sympathetic, and then suddenly would turn on a dime, and a whole other personality would take over. And unfortunately, this is fairly common amongst autistic young people.
And then Flora, I guess, although also considered on this incredibly broad autism spectrum, Flora was very, very different from Jenny, I guess, would be considered lower functioning. And Gayle talks a lot about the heartache that she feels like both her daughters' lives were essentially stolen by the pharmaceutical industry and the vaccine manufacturers in particular.
Well, exactly. And Flora she's very sweet, but she's not very verbal. I don't think she can ever live independently. She's in a very nice group home, I should mention. That's fortunate because, as we've been learning, many of these group homes are abusive. Right. And there's exposés published on that recently in the state of New Jersey. I think that's overdue. But fortunately, in our case, the homes were very good, and but she won't be able to support herself. And she has certain talents. She has an absolutely angelic singing voice, for example. Both girls were bat mitzvahed, and Flora. We had Flora chant the entire service, and she's able to carry that off. Apparently, singing is a more basic human capacity than speech. Some people who can't speak can sing.
Yeah.
I will say that the two girls are actually very good friends, and they're very close to each other, but they have no symptoms in common.
Right.
And it's extraordinary that they are so different. But apparently, that's the way autism works. It can affect certain parts of the brain and then leave others unharmed. Yeah.
Right. So throughout the diary, Gayle talks about what a wonderful support you were to her and how much she cherished you and vice versa. And so I think one of the questions for you, not every marriage survives through the challenges of autism. How did you and Gayle make that work with these really difficult challenges that you faced?
The challenges were difficult. Well, first of all, you have to understand that a marriage like this is not 50-50, it's 100-100. You have to absolutely each partner has to give their all to it, and then it works. You have to make the happiness of your partner your absolute first priority. Right. And that's what we did. It also helps, of course, if you're on the same page regarding, say, treatment options, right. and by and large, we were.
Right.
And you have to both pitch in. Gayle was a professor like me. She was a consummate career woman. I know that many autism moms give up their careers to spend, full time taking care of their children. She would have shot herself if she had to do that. Right. So we staggered our teaching schedules. I taught Monday, Wednesday, Friday. She taught Tuesday, Thursday. Someone was always at home with the kids. Yeah. We divided up the household tasks. I did the cooking, and that's how we made it work.
And so the COVID experience, she describes sort of very viscerally of how she understood where it had come from, having been an autism mom by that point for almost 20 years. So she was not taken in for a moment by the COVID craziness and the COVID lies, but that can't have been an easy addition to the challenges you were already facing.
She saw immediately that the measures that were taken were going to be disastrous, especially for special needs families.
Yeah.
The shutdown of the schools, the withdrawal of social services was an absolute nightmare. And she realized that these measures were not going to stop the virus, just continue to spread. We knew beforehand, because of course scientists had looked at this, and they had predicted, if a pandemic hits, don't shut things down, try to live life as normally as possible. Well, they disregarded that and shut everything down. And what this meant was that these families, special needs families especially, had to take on a lot of extra burdens, and they got on each other's nerves. And I think it contributed to, first of all, a loss of 1 or 2 years of schooling for an entire generation, and secondly, a lot of paranoia and hysteria, because people started turning on each other under the pressure of that.
No, for special needs families, it was absolutely devastating to lose all those services, to lose the supports. It was just devastating. And I think Gayle talks about how it was just one burden too many. It was so difficult to deal with that on top of. And one of the other things I found quite fascinating, Jonathan, was her struggles with what kind of treatments to take for herself, given that she was dealing with breast cancer. Was she going to go the pharma route? Was she going to go the homeopathic route? Was she going to do the anthroposophical route? And it was quite fascinating to watch her sort of ruminating about how to make those decisions. And she talks about how, it was hard, right? And discussing those with you, that was another challenge she was dealing with.
Yes, she went to Sloan Kettering initially when after the diagnosis, and there was a physician there, female, so significant, who told her, "All right, we're doing chemo and radiation." And Gayle was a little bit taken aback, and she said, "Well, can I have a second opinion?" And the surgeon told her, "There are no second opinions at Sloan Kettering. We all follow the same treatment protocols." And that sort of put, Gayle started to distrust, rather deeply. And soon they were basically at loggerheads with each other. And Gayle was determined at that point to take charge of her own treatment. Now she did use doctors, but doctors who were frankly outside of the mainstream. She never did chemo. She relied largely on organic diet and estrogen blockers and so on, and coffee enemas. It was a full-time job managing her own treatment, but she was a very, very self-directed woman, and she said, "This is my life, it's my body, I'm doing it my way."
Right.
And that's why I loved her, among other things. I mean, I respected that. I didn't understand a lot of these treatments, to be perfectly honest. It involved a huge amount of research on her part.
Sure.
But I trusted her judgment, and I want to keep her around, believe me, but that's...
No, of course. And she was, among her many, many gifts and talents, she was an extraordinarily intelligent woman. And, one would have every reason to trust her research and her decisions about her own welfare and the families and yours and your daughters. What do you think are the core messages that she would say were sort of the core messages of the diary? And I wanted to say also that one of the things that to me was so remarkable about Gayle was the extraordinary, really important research that she did about autism, about the injuries from the human papillomavirus vaccine, about Gardasil. She was really able to navigate the statistics and to tell the truth in ways that truly no scholars were doing at the time. And so she and I would communicate often. Her papers that were really good were being retracted because that's what the academic journals did. And so we had that bond, but she made major contributions in her scholarship aside from all the other things she was doing.
Well, people criticized her because she wasn't a doctor, and I said she should say that I'm not a doctor. I'm a statistician. That means I can count. Yes. And she was very expert at that, and she was able to show correlations between autism and vaccination and the harms of the HPV vaccine.
Fertility, right? She showed the fertility harms. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes. That was so. I think precisely because she was outside of medical establishment, she was able to look at this with a fresh eye and say, "Wait a minute, there are there are certain problems we're not dealing with here."
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
What do you think she would say were the takeaways, if you will, from this diary? What were the main points that you think she would be wanting us to know from this diary?
She was convinced that things would eventually turn around, that we'd reach a tipping point where we break through the censorship and so on and get a hearing in a larger society and win people over. And I admit I was somewhat more pessimistic about that because I'm a historian and I know through history the good guys don't always win,
No.
But I think that we are now at that tipping point. Right. We had the hearings that Senator Ron Johnson just held. I think that was an enormous breakthrough. And we do have RFK Jr. in a very important position of power, and that it can accomplish a lot there. So I feel that even though the human cost was enormous, we may have finally reached the point where we're starting to face up to what we've been doing to this generation of children.
So do you think that she would be optimistic at this point if she were here with us?
I think she was optimistic back then. I think she would feel vindicated. And I think in many ways she is vindicated. Yes. And again, if a lot of historians are now finally looking at the pandemic, and there's In COVID's Wake by Stephen Macedo and Francis Lee, and they are basically agreeing with what Gayle recognized 5 years ago, except that she recognized it immediately that this was not going to work, would have terrible consequences. So in that sense, yes, I think she's been vindicated.
And how are Flora and Jenny doing now, Jonathan?
Well, Jennifer has another book about to come out. It is called Manimal Crackers with an M. Apparently, there was a TV series in the 1980s called Manimal about a mild-mannered professor who has a superpower. He can transform himself into a wild beast, and he uses this power to apprehend baddies with the assistance of a beautiful blonde police lieutenant. Okay, and it lasted 8 episodes. It was canceled, but it has a very small and very passionate cult following, including Jennifer. So the premise of her book is that the British actor who played the professor, Simon McCorkindale, is no longer with us, but he comes back as a ghost, and he plays the guardian angel to a young autistic girl. Hilarity ensues. So that's about to come out, and I think she's an amazingly creative writer. She can invent really incredible plots, and she's capable of creating voices of different characters that are distinctive. So that's a real talent. Yes. And Flora, well, she's well taken care of. They certainly dress her more stylishly than we ever did.
Well, I'm happy to hear that. Anything else you want to tell us about the book or anything else?
Well, I hope it will be a help to families that are coping with autism. I mean that this will be a more realistic treatment of, an end of sort of all the happy news that we tend to get, which which is all right up to a point, but tends to mask the real problems here.
Yeah.
And I think that look, it's a love story, and I think it's very inspiring on that level.
Oh, it
And
is.
it's true. It's true. Like with a lot of love stories, the girl dies in the end. But while it lasted, it was a wonderful, wonderful experience. And I'll put it this way: when I met Gayle, if I had known beforehand all the pains, all the joys we'd experienced, I would have married her immediately, right away. No question about it. It was, I'm sorry it had to come to an end, but it was wonderful while it lasted.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Well, Jonathan, thank you so much for sharing the diary with us and for sharing your time today and giving us an update. And I agree, it's an inspiring story, and Gayle is much missed.
Thank you, Mary. I think she really appreciates that wherever she is.
I hope so. Thanks.
Good morning. We are. Can you tell everyone where we are? Yeah, you can tell exactly that they've given the address out and everything.
We are in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Right now we are in Wexford, and we are in the North Hills of the city.
It's very beautiful around here.
It is. It's very pretty here.
And I just want to say, before we get into the story, that congratulations to the Bundy family for their beautiful, beautiful baby girl that was born this morning. So I know all of you follow her, and as I know, everything went really well, and she's beautiful and she's healthy and she's not vaccinated, of course. All right, thank you. We're not too late. We started about 10 minutes late, I think, which is not too bad for us. Now, did I turn my phone off? Yeah, we're good. Yeah, no, we're 20 minutes late. Okay, that's not too bad for us.
Not a problem.
Can you tell everyone your name?
My name is Kristen Gallagher.
And you've been in this game for a fair amount of time.
A long time.
I think it's very important, because they like to call us, that crazy anti-vax crowd, that we talk about how, everyone knows how pro-vaccine I was before. Now, you also were extremely pro-vaccine.
I was so pro-vaccine. I worked in healthcare. I worked in emergency medical services. And I was around infectious diseases, and everybody should be vaccinated, because the people that don't vaccinate, you're crazy, you're ignorant, and you're dumb. You're just
you're
stupid.
Dangerous.
And you're dangerous, and you should just be banished.
Right, that was your attitude.
Absolutely. They were crazy.
And so what did you do in the health field?
I worked in emergency medical services. I worked on an ambulance. I worked with geriatrics. I worked hospice care, end-stage life. I worked different aspects of healthcare. And of course, I was fully vaccinated, 8 of them as a child. When I went into emergency medical services, I had, you have to have the hepatitis shot. Shoot me up. And then I got really, really sick right after the first vaccine, and I thought, I was just probably sick. No, I ended up with the worst respiratory infection of my life. So then I thought, I'm just not going to finish them. And I didn't really think much of it. But but still, vaccines are safe. Everybody should be vaccinated. There's no questions asked. Because the science is behind it.
And it's settled, so just don't even ask questions.
Don't.
So what happened? So you like everybody else.
I had my children. I had my oldest son, and he was vaccinated. The doctor at the time said, we're introducing this new 5-in-1 vaccine. And he said, are you interested? And I thought, it's new, 5 Nah, let's break them up. Let's space them up.
Let someone else try it first. I'll let you know.
He said, we have to draw it just to make sure. I said, nah. I said, let's just do the old-fashioned way. Oh, okay. So my son, he did perfectly fine, and then my daughter was born, and she had a lot of gastrointestinal issues at birth. And, of course, we shot her up with vaccines, and there was the kid that didn't progress. And she was diagnosed at 17 months. But something mysterious about her, she would get these mysterious fevers that her temperature would go to 105, 106. No cold symptoms, nothing, and just vanish. And then at 17 months, she was diagnosed with autism. My youngest, Evan. Because when my daughter was diagnosed, I started to hear about things with vaccines and autism, and I thought, oh my God, listen to these kooks. They're crazy. They're absolutely insane. And I had a daughter with autism. It's genetic. It's completely genetic. The science shows us.
You're one of those real hardcore,
this science
scary trolls even.
Shows us. Yeah, the science shows us. So my youngest one, I took him in and I said to the doctor, you know, I'm going to space these vaccines out because, you know, there's these crazy people and they say that we shouldn't give all these vaccines at once. So I'm going to show these nuts that vaccines are perfectly safe. He said, yeah, really, they are crazy. I said, they are. He said, we're just going to give them the DPT. Not a problem. Give them the DPT. All right, buddy. Sorry, I know it hurt. Let's go home. Went home. I had a babysitter. Evan was sleeping in his car seat. And she said, maybe you better take his jacket off. He looks a little warm. I said, well, it's like 20 degrees out. Take it off. All of a sudden, he started to cry. I picked him up. I said, oh my God, he's burning up. He's hot. I stripped him down. I took his temperature. His temperature was almost 107 within 45 minutes of the vaccine. And there I was, a crazy person. Now I was questioning vaccines. I hurried up and I called the doctor and I said, there's something seriously wrong. You're fine. He's fine. He probably just had the start of a cold. But I just had him in your office 45 minutes ago. How does a child with no temperature go to 107? Give him Motrin, give him Tylenol. He'll be perfectly fine. You're overreacting. For 3 days, he had a high temperature. And I kept treating with Motrin because he just had a cold. In my mind, I'm still trying to bullshit myself that he just has a cold. It's really not a reaction. So then he started to lose everything. The smile. He stopped eating. He stopped walking for a while.
And at this point, we should show how he was before he was vaccinated. He was can you describe him, how he was before?
As a baby?
Yeah, like in this picture.
He was my fat, happy baby. And his favorite things were to be tickled, laughed at, and eat. That was his favorite things. And he was reaching all of his milestones. So when I watched this happen in front of my eyes, because I had heard about these stories from these crazy vax people, they're crazy. I said, maybe they're not so crazy. I'm watching my child deteriorate in front of my eyes. This is insane. So the doctor, I got a letter and it said in the letter, your child is not fully vaccinated. You need to come back and get him caught up. I called him and I said, you do know the reaction. Well, yeah, but we don't think it was from the vaccine. And I said, I do. He said, well, if you don't fully vaccinate him, you're going to have to leave our practice. And I said, well, let me think about that. Bye. And then I come to find out 3 months later in a newspaper article that he was the vaccine purchaser for the Pittsburgh area. So I was thrown out of his practice. And now I have a child that has an intellectual disability, autism, vision loss, hearing loss, and within the past 2 years he has developed severe seizures. But the science shows that vaccines are completely safe. Science hurt my child.
So overnight you became one of us.
I did.
How old is he today?
He's 15.
Can you describe what that vaccine has done to your son, what it has taken from him, what his life is like now because of that moment in time?
It has taken away everything. He is a 15-year-old child with the mentality of a 3-year-old. He still plays with Thomas trains and he watches Elmo videos. He should be playing sports. He plays special needs sports, but he should be doing so much more. It stripped him of a normal life. It caused this. It has taken away. I had to place him in residential at a very early age. Do you know what it's like to say, I can't take care of my child? It was horrible. He was ramming his head through glass doors. He was fecal smearing. He was fecal ingesting. He was ripping his sister's hair out. I was told by a case manager that maybe I should put him up for adoption. And you know what I did? I was desperate because I spent days and days on the phone calling for help, and nobody could help me. I wound up on the doorstep of an adoption agency looking for help. And the girl said, well, come on in, fill out the application. I said, I don't want to put my child up for adoption. Don't you have some kind of resources? She said, well, 80% of people that walk in here end up placing their kid for adoption. I burst into tears and I said, I will not be of the 80%. I said, I will find the help he needs. And I had to fight all of these government agencies here in Pittsburgh to get the help for him. I had to place my child at a very young age. And I will tell you, there is nothing that's more painful than that ever. I'm beyond tears. I'm now pissed off because I have heard from so many other parents that I took my child in that was perfectly healthy, gave them a vaccination, and they're gone. They're gone. And then you have the people that screamed, but it's the science that shows. Your science is a little skewed.
Does your boy have seizures?
Yes, he does.
How many seizures is he experiencing? What kind of life is he living with that?
We are now on our 5th seizure medication. His last seizure was so severe that he had to be transported by ambulance and he wouldn't come out of it. It was a half hour. He's now losing language because of the seizures.
And it's affecting his ears and why?
His hearing, we did not find out he was moderately deaf until he was 11 because everybody blamed it on his autism. It was when he was sedated. I actually travel outside of Pittsburgh for medical care. I go to Columbus, Ohio. And they tested his hearing and said he was moderately deaf. He also, when he became somewhat verbal, he was able to tell me his stomach hurt. And I took him to a gastro doctor and he said, yeah, your kid's stomach's pretty jacked up. So all these years that he was so self-injurious and hurting himself, that he was physically sick too.
What do you think when you see the doctors on the television and the news, the media, the pediatricians, the people still out there relentlessly saying that vaccines are safe and effective? And you just see injury, you see it everywhere. It's everywhere now.
It must be nice to live in that bubble. It really must be nice to live in that bubble. Because you're just preaching what you've been told by the CDC. You're clinging on to that like it's a religion. Unless you witness it for yourself, you're not going to know. Vaccines generate millions and millions of dollars. Our kids are being harmed by vaccines. Not all, but there's a good bit that are. Look at this bus. For God's sake, there's so many names on this bus. It's shocking. When you pulled in here, Polly, I was in shock. But all these parents, all these names on this bus, they're crazy. They're insane. You know, if I said to a doctor my child had a severe reaction to eating peanuts, they'd believe me. But if I say my child had a severe reaction to a vaccine, I'm insane. I'm crazy. I'm nuts. I'm one of those anti-vaxxed. That's what's scary. They'll believe you if it's a peanut allergy, but they won't believe you if it's a vaccine.
We have many, many people that attack us the whole time, that say that, you know, we're a danger. You coming on this bus, we're spreading to you. We're brainwashing you into coming in here and telling your story.
I came here of my own will. Polly didn't call me up and say, hey, I'm going to be in your city. Why don't you come on up? I found out you were coming. And I felt that people should know my story. And I'm not telling them to not vaccinate. I'm telling them this can happen. Read the insert of these vaccines. They're there for a reason. And it can happen. And you have to look back to when I was vaccinated. I had 8 vaccinations. And I'm perfectly fine. Well, maybe that's debatable now because I'm one of those crazy vax people. Why are we not spacing them out? Why are we giving them...
You did space them out, though.
I did. But they were still somewhat too close together. But
Wait, your son just had DTP. My son just had MMR.
Yeah.
That was
so we didn't even get that far.
That was, you can't space them out any more than that.
No. It is scary what is going on. It's so scary.
If they mandate vaccines and the military come in and they say, give me your kids now.
I'll leave. Pennsylvania, we are lucky. We still have our vaccine exemption. And I was asked, well, why? Well, what is your exemption? It's a religious exemption. Okay, fine. I'm not giving a hard time. And what I'm finding more and more is with when I go into hospitals and doctors' offices, and when I say my child had a DPT reaction to the DTaP, I used to get a lot of horrible looks and you're crazy. Now they just kind of put their head down and go. But in my child's medical records, it's listed as the DPT as an allergen. That's a hell of an allergy, if you ask me.
Yeah.
That's it. There's something going on.
What about your boy's future? What does his future hold?
I'm afraid to die. He lives with one person in their home. It's a residential setting. If something happens to him, I don't know. But I'm afraid to die. His future, I hope that he can continue being happy. I hope that he will be able to be relatively independent, but never fully dependent, ever. He will not be. He will be reliant on somebody for the rest of his life. And the thousands and thousands of dollars that it is taking for his care. I can't go after the vaccine manufacturer. You know what his care is? Just to where he lives? It's over $69,000 a year. His education is over $47,000 a year. His medical cost this past year was over $50,000. His behavioral health was $38,000. His transportation to school was $15,000. His medications were over $6,000. This is one child that was injured by a vaccine. It's costing all of us.
When you were training in your healthcare, did they teach you about vaccines?
Everybody should get them. No questions asked. There was not even the remote mention that vaccines could hurt you.
So when you took your son in for that DTP, did you think in any way, shape or form there could be any kind of reaction?
No, I didn't.
You thought they were 100% safe?
They're safe. They're safe. The science shows us they're safe. And I keep mentioning that because that's what I hear on the pro-vaccine. Well, it's the science. Well, if you go back to science, what I remember of science class was the world is round, and for every action, there's a reaction. So when you take a child who's perfectly healthy, and your action is inserting a vaccine into something, there's going to be a reaction, whether it might not be, it might be mild, it might be a mild fever, it might be a little bit of swelling, or it could be death. Don't question vaccines. When I was in training, no, you didn't. You'd be afraid of all the diseases out there. We've eradicated all the diseases because of all these vaccines. Really? Have we? Or have we started to eradicate our children?
What would it have taken to have changed your mind back then? Would this story now that you're doing, if you'd watched you as a young you, would that have changed it, or would it need more?
I think because I was so regimented with vaccines. If I was watching this and I didn't have a child with autism, Oh, look at those crazy people on that bus. They're just trolling around here, and they're causing all kinds of havoc, and they're putting fear in their fearmongers. It was until it happened
exactly what this.
me. It was until it happened to me, to my child. And now those crazy people, not so crazy anymore. Unless we're all crazy.
Have you got a picture of him now? Can we see a picture of him now? I just want to remind you all of what he was like before he was, you know, he's described as being a really happy little chappy, meeting all his milestones before he had this DTP. And mother extremely pro-vaccine, and would not have then been regarded as a friend of ours.
Absolutely not.
But now,
not.
She's our best buddy. Let's have a look at him.
Here he is. He actually went with his care provider.
Oh, look at him.
And they went to go watch the eclipse.
There he is watching the eclipse, showing we are vax, because it happens to be the one on my left. And is he quite tall?
He is 6'1".
Yeah, he's 15 years old.
15 years old.
There he is. Showing YouTube now. Well, everybody here is sending you a lot of love, and they're telling you how sorry they are. All hundreds of thousands, if not millions of us that believed. And our babies are now injured, like your boy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And thank you for all your work.
Thank you for all your work.
Speaking out as well, though. Speaking out, and being so honest. We really appreciate it.
And I appreciate you having me. And thanks everyone for watching.
Yeah, you have to watch this back, because they're sending you a lot of hearts and love. Now, is his name on the bus?
It is. He is number... Pardon the old age, the memory is just going. Autism will eat at everything of you. His number, sorry if I show it?
Yeah, it's a number.
Is number 1536.
Well, that's going back some. We're way over that now.
Yeah, 1536.
Well, thank you so much. They're saying, what about your daughter? Is she on the bus?
No, she is not on the bus. I would probably put her on the bus.
Is she doing okay? How's she doing?
She's got a lot of her gastro issues. She's very, very high functioning, as they say.
Did she have MMR?
She did, but you know, she was so severe colic at birth, and I was told that it was colic, and
it's all your fault.
Well, I was the doctor actually told me that, and he said she's colic. I said no, she's possessed by the devil, because she screamed for 12 and 14 hours a day, and come to find out, severe gastro issues. Just horrid. But
and how old is she now?
She is 16. So all of my children are all in a row. But Evan was my child that was damaged, was hurt, was injured by a vaccine.
We're really sorry. Sorry. Thank you for speaking out. Your voice is incredibly important.
Oh, thank you.
Okay, so Pete, I think we have a lot of stories today. So,
yes.
But really, truly, thank you. I'm going to come off this. We'll continue to talk.